A lot of credit goes to my co-founder and honestly, like our data scientists too. They get a ton of credit for kind of creating presentations, PowerPoints, in like really digestible ways, how our models worked, what the models were that we were using, how it all comes together. And then once they had that foundation, we created games. And it's like literally just one of the games is we're showing you five images, pick the two that look the most similar over like
Mm,
right like you're
nice.
training a
Yeah.
model. You're training a
Yeah.
model on similarity. At the end, I really believe that most of our interns had gone from being like quite intimidated by the concept of like, oh, I'm working in AI or training models or doing anything technical. To be like, oh, this is really cool and I can totally do this.
Welcome to Taste and Tactics, where founders and go-to-market leaders share how they brought their boldest ideas to life. From concept to execution, we cover every step behind these iconic launches. Join me each week for both inspiration and actionable tips. I'm Shriya Nevatia. Let's dive in. Hi, Michelle. I'm so excited to have you on Taste and Tactics. We
Yay.
met a little while back when you won an AI demo day that I helped organize, which you strongly, strongly deserved. It's such a cool product that you built. Yeah, would love to hear if you can tell a little overview to all of our listeners about Capsule and a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Thank you. That was such a fun experience. I think back so fondly on it. Okay, I'm Michelle, co-founder and CEO of Capsule, as you mentioned. The idea of Capsule was basically Shazam for shopping. So my co-founder and I met at Stitch Fix. I went on to work at another startup that was also in the fashion discovery space. We had become very bullish on what visual search could do as a means for discovery, shopping, finding what you love, and really leaned into that premise with Capsule, the ability to take an image or screenshot and instantly give people really high quality, accurate shopping results. So that was the premise of it and how we got started. Um, yeah, hopefully that is good for a start. Kick us off.
I still remember within a few weeks of meeting you and using the product, I actually like took a little stealth picture of a woman at an event wearing a really cute skirt, and
Yeah, I
it
remember
pulled up
this.
from H&M that exact thing, and I bought it, and it's one of my favorite skirts.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
actually vividly remember that text message. That's so funny. It
I
was a
love
great
it.
product. Like I think we had an advantage in that we were our own users as well. We absolutely loved it, but obviously between the two of us had decades of experience sort of in the space and a really strong core belief system that it would become a huge way that people sort of navigate the e-commerce space.
And then yeah, how did it work? And then you were recently acquired, so just share a little bit about that and when it happened.
Yeah, for sure. So initially, it was basically just image and screenshot upload. And the initial sort of product was returned just a handful of links, and we were optimizing for getting you the exact product out of the gate as quickly as possible. We ended up expanding the product quite a bit, kind of in two ways. One was we became really interested in the data layer that powered that technology. Traditionally, if you're building in this space, you either have to have partnerships with brands or your own inventory. And we realized if you're trying to create something at this scale where you can recognize any product that you see across any medium, you really need access to everything there is out there. And that data layer doesn't really exist yet, or it hadn't until we started developing it with Capsule. So we really leaned into the back end of the experience and how to ensure that our users could find every product. And secondarily, we expanded the discovery mechanism as well. So we started to play with really kind of new and novel ways to generate personalization that leveraged generative AI and text search, sort of all of the things that a user needs for a really robust shopping experience. So evolved over time. We did end up getting acquired by a larger startup, and the idea was to acquire our team and our technology to power basically an agentic chat shopping experience. And so our data layer and the products that we had, we were scraping 25,000 websites and generating consistent universal product IDs for 40 million products. And so we're able to use that data layer to power the experience of the company that acquired us. So that happened about a year ago and have been working on that experience ever since.
That's awesome. Okay, so today we're going to talk about your like intern ambassador program, which
Yeah.
absolutely turbocharged so many aspects of the company, your growth, your user research. So super excited to dive into that. So why did you even consider an intern program? Why did you like come up with that and start with it?
For sure. Such a like absolute favorite aspect of what we built at the company was our internship program. Initially, it was really about talking to one of our core target user groups and helping us scale user growth, kind of boots on the ground. So at Capsule, we had identified that we sort of had three power users. One was a very young Gen Z college student. One was a more traditional, like millennial mom or suburban female. And then we actually had a third group that was like, we called them like our New York elite, a smaller group, but they spent a lot. And so when we were thinking about scaling, it was like, well, where do we go? We need to be hyper focused on one of these groups because obviously, if you're being really intentional about what you're building, the product would evolve a bit differently depending on which of those target groups you're going after. And so we decided to focus on Gen Z specifically, and we decided to do that via an internship program, like really connecting with college students, young females mostly, but we did actually have some male students and users, so we had some males in the program as well. And understanding what they loved about it, what they didn't love about it, and using them for sort of word of mouth guerrilla growth was the initial concept. As we'll chat through, it evolved to be much, much more, but that was our inspiration to initially start the program.
I love it. So when you launched it, you shared that you actually started with like smaller or like less super well-known schools that had companies just throwing internship programs at them
Yeah,
all the time. So, and then eventually you did expand to some of those. So share a little bit of why that happened.
yeah, of course. So, as you mentioned, some of the more well-known colleges and students, especially sororities, but
Mm,
everyone, are inundated with companies, not just tech, Kendall Scott, Victoria's Secret, like they have companies coming after them all of the time
mm-hmm.
to bring on ambassadors, as they call them, for their brand, for their company within the college campus. And we thought, okay, it's going to be really hard for a small, we had YC backed, we had some good VCs behind us, but like still a very small, not known at all company to stand out in some of these bigger, more well-known schools. And so we sat down and thought, well, why would we bother? Why are we going to put all this energy into standing out in this really competitive college space? Why don't we just go to the colleges nobody goes to? Like they still, these girls shop just as much.
Yeah, yeah.
They have the same demographic, psychographic. They have sororities, and so we started out kind of in mid-tier and some like completely not heard of schools. So we went to San Diego State. We went to a college in Minnesota, Indiana, but not IU. Like really kind of branched out, tried to get some representation across the United States, and really quickly realized like this works. Like first of all, they're not super exposed to Silicon Valley or tech at large, and so it was a really novel and exciting opportunity. There's a tech company here, like oh my gosh, and so that was really fun. And then the other piece of it was really, um, I think, intentional in sort of like a giving back is kind of a funky way to put it, but like these big companies, like these kids also have not only is it hard for you to stand out, but like the access to it is really, really high for these students. And we were going into schools where some of them didn't even know like what a startup was or how it
Mm-hmm.
operated. Like they know the big guys, but we were really able to kind of help demystify what the tech world looks like and then eventually what AI looks like as well. And that was really special for both of us. Kelsey, my co-founder, grew up in Palo Alto and was around technology her whole life and realized the value of that. I grew up an hour and a half away in the Central Valley of California, and I literally fell into a startup. I had no idea what it was. It was completely mind blowing to me, and I could see that happen really quickly with these interns, and that was really special as well. So
I love it. And then how did you eventually stand out in the really competitive schools where competitive in an intern sense, like you said, where companies are throwing them opportunities?
yeah, for sure. So I think it helped that we had a bunch of interns kind of already building alongside of us. Like the product had actually gotten exponentially better as well. And so we had something better and more exciting to showcase once we got there. But functionally and operationally, we kind of went through their college campus programs, and we would try and get in touch with someone at the sorority or fraternity we were going on, LinkedIn, even finding like people that we knew who had gone to the school in the past and then could connect us with someone who was there now. So we really did it by way of warm introduction at the new schools. But again, by the time we were then talking to them, we had an established program and a more established and better operating app as well. So,
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the program itself. So what did
yeah.
it look like? What did they sign up for? What did they get?
So the program was kind of threefold. One was they were our, as we talked about at the beginning, boots on the ground marketing. They were going to events, handing out flyers, talking to other students about it. They were also doing social media posts for us. So they would create Instagram reels, create posts. They all had access to our Capsule Instagram, but they were also doing things on their own feeds, their own TikToks, Instagram, anything that they used. They were, what's the other one? VSCO even, like all,
Oh yeah, wow.
I'm saying that wrong because I'm
Or like
outdated.
Visco, yeah, yeah.
VSCO.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not a user of that, but
Yeah,
they
yeah,
were,
yeah.
and so they were
We're
really,
both millennials, and so we're like,
oh
oh,
God.
what is
Um,
this Gen Z stuff?
What is the
Yeah.
Gen Z stuff? They were obsessed with it. Pinterest, they were creating Pinterest pages, like anything that could bring users to us. They were doing both on their own accounts and for us. So that was really, really helpful, obviously, for growth and being able to bounce ideas off them to find our own brand identity and kind of what our pages should look like cohesively was wonderful. The third bucket was, I think, maybe the most interesting and different was we actually had them helping us train our data. So obviously with what we were doing, my co-founder and I and our technical team had built and fine-tuned LLMs to kind of power the ranking of these items on a similarity score, starting to account for personalization as well. But that the fine-tuning is hard, and the more products you have, the more difficult it becomes and the more important those relevance and ranking scores become. And so we were actually able to kind of gamify eventually what tagging and AI training looked like. And we had all of these interns at our peak, around 20, 23 of them maybe, interns helping us tag and do AI training daily. So that was sort of the other arm of it and ended up being incredibly valuable.
That's really cool. So
Oh, you
how
also asked me
did,
what
oh
they
yeah.
got, and I didn't answer that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah.
So it was an unpaid at like an hourly rate internship, which I know, has some love and some hate out there. But I do want to clarify that I think that there was immense value for these interns in other ways. So while we weren't like, okay, how many hours did you work and paying them $15 an hour? When we wanted people to do a post, we'd be like, hey, we'll Venmo you $25 to do this post, or we're going to give you $50 to shop. Can you record it? If they were doing an event, we'd send them a gift card. We did all kinds of things to create dollar value. We
Hmm.
just didn't have them in like a structured, please send us a timesheet and here's how many hours you worked every single week. I also think we gave back a lot in terms of time. So outside of the sort of like three functions that they were doing for us, my co-founder and I were really intentional about what we were giving them. And so we had monthly town halls where we walked through like whatever we were going through in the business, and they could ask complete, no, nothing was off the table. Any question they wanted to ask about us, how the company was doing, what we were up to in our day to day, anything business related or related to the company, they would ask in an open forum, and we would answer really, really honestly. We started creating sort of guest speaker events where we'd bring someone in who was an expert in a particular area, and they would talk for an hour and they could ask questions about whether it's marketing or branding or data. And so we really tried to create an environment that helped them grow for the future of their education and careers as well. So those are kind
That's
of
awesome.
what we did.
I feel like once you're in the industry and full-time jobs, there's like opportunities to hear from people. There's like podcasts, there's
Yes.
the companies bring in people. You can honestly just like ask a lot of them, but we like forget that in college, you don't get an opportunity to hear
No.
from like a full-time accomplished tech person.
No, and most of them
Yeah.
in a college who like they don't know a single person who works in tech. These kids
Yeah.
like they just don't. That's not their world, and so that exposure, like they all showed up at all of them. It
Yeah.
was like if they couldn't be on screen, they're like, I'm gonna have my headphones, I'm dialing in and texting us. So I hope and I believe that we created a lot of value for them, the things that we were intentional with outside of pay.
They're like, I'm gonna keep it on the side during class and just like turn on Zoom
We could text
captions.
and
Yeah.
cancel. Yeah, it was hilarious. They didn't want to miss anything.
Yeah.
They really didn't. It was really special.
That's awesome. I mean, so how did you teach people about AI? Like, how did you, like you said, this isn't people who were exposed to tech. This wasn't like a computer science major. This was a person who was interested in shopping and business.
Yeah, we did end up having some more technical interns towards the end who were interested in computer and data science. So that got really fun. But
Nice.
at the beginning, no, they were like fashion majors, business majors, like you said. And a lot of credit goes to my co-founder and honestly, like our data scientists too. Before we really got them involved and doing tagging and answering questions and creating these games, we would have meetings where we would talk about how the app worked, how the AI worked, and really explain it in a way that anyone can understand, like demystifying it. Like it feels so crazy and complicated. And this is not to discredit any of the work that the amazing data scientists and engineers do who build this tech, but once you understand the key concepts of how it works, it really isn't scary anymore, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
anyone can help, and a human is so critical in training these models, and so they get a ton of credit for kind of creating presentations, PowerPoints, walking them through in like really digestible ways how our models worked, what the models were that we were using, how it all comes together. And then once they had that foundation, we created games. They'd be like, this is really helping train a model. And it's like literally just one of the games is we're showing you 5 images, pick the two that look the most similar over like
Mm.
right like you're
Nice.
training a
Yeah.
model. You're training a
Yeah.
model on similarity. Um, so we went a bunch of different games like that, and then we would um, get together and walk through the improvements and the learnings with them as well. So it's like, hey, this is the game we're doing. Let's all do it for a week, and then Justin or Kelsey would put together a quick slide or two to be like, look what you did through this game. So it was really fun, and I think at the end, I really believe that most of our interns had gone from being like quite intimidated by the concept of like, oh, I'm working in AI or training models or doing anything technical, to be like, oh, this is really cool and I can totally do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's I love that you turn it into a game because it sounds a little tedious. You're like, oh, okay, so they had to like tag and categorize a bunch of stuff. Like,
Initially, we did have spreadsheets, and it was like pretty boring, I think, the first couple of goes. But the cool thing about a really engaged community like that is they help you come up with ideas. It's like, oh, this is so cool. We love seeing what we're doing. We love learning about it. But like, yeah, it takes a really long time. Spreadsheets are boring. I can't do it in class, even though I should be paying attention. And so the games kind of evolved, working through things together. And we had several different games that they were able to play to train.
how did you make sure that this wasn't like a crazy time commitment for you?
Um, I think part of the job of obviously of any co-founder is identifying what's going to help move the needle. And I wouldn't say like it wasn't a crazy time commitment, but I actually think like I want to clarify I did put meaningful time into this like as a co-founder, and I think that it was really important. And so of course like they would understand if something happened. I was like, I have a fire and our meeting is canceled, or guys, I'm not going to be there for this thing that I said I would. They were super understanding and accommodating and loved to hear like what happened, because I would tell them what happened that took away my time. But I do want to, yeah, be clear that I gave it a lot of time. I actually, at the beginning, probably up until about 12 interns, like I had monthly one-on-ones, only 30
Mm.
minutes, but that's a lot of time
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
With that many people.
with
Yeah,
that
it
many
adds up.
people.
Yeah.
And like, with interns essentially. And it was, in my opinion, well worth the time because they ended up working on the most critical aspects of the business, growth and our models. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I had to be cognizant, but I think it worked because it wasn't minimal time. It was somewhat meaningful amounts of time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the training the data model is really unique and interesting, but even for
Yeah.
people who are trying to do the classic other components, which are boots on the ground, events, firing, like you said, social media, what would you say works now compared to like 10 years ago? Were there
Oh,
differences?
I think one is the community based. I do think some of these programs we learned from some as well have gotten like pretty advanced, right? So it's like, okay, you may go out and have someone trying to do guerrilla marketing, but once you get so many interns, that becomes kind of unmanageable from like a leadership perspective. And so I did take some modeling from other companies. Kendall Scott, I mentioned earlier, is a good example. Like they actually would kind of promote interns within the organization to then help run the other interns. And we ended up doing that. We
Oh,
actually
cool.
had, I should have mentioned this earlier, but after probably 6 months or so, 8 months of the program, we promoted a couple of these interns and they were paid in a
Oh,
more
cool.
hourly capacity and they were helping us kind of spearhead everything. And then we ended up after we were getting close to the acquisition, but before that we had talked about kind of having that actually as a rotating role. So people are getting leadership experience within this community as well as the work they're doing for growth and data. And so I think that community and making sure that you are providing opportunity and creating value in a meaningful way is like the number one thing. And I actually truly believe that one of the biggest differences is like I could go and pay all of these guys some basic amount to do this thing, but the reason that it was successful and the reason that we got back what we did is because we created value outside of dollars. Like it was the opportunity for growth, the community. These kids were all texting each other. They were texting me, really building um, that entire sort of culture within not only the company, but what we did with the program is what I would say to lean into. And I think what in today's market will make a standout program that's modeled some way to some extent like this versus someone who it takes you nowhere. Because I think it can very easily take you nowhere.
And I think creating that community, I'm sure that people were also sharing things with each other and they were like, this worked on my campus, you should try this.
Oh, totally. In our town
Yeah.
halls, we had structured time to talk about, hey, what did you do last week, the week before that really worked either on campus if you were tackling on campus every this month because they rotated kind of like things they were doing on the marketing side. And they'd be like, I did this TikTok and it bombed. And like, do you
Hmm.
anybody have any ideas why or what would you have done differently? So yes, well, I mean, you're 100% correct. I think that's huge.
Did people have, were there any people who had like a small, like niche following on TikTok or Instagram, or was it just their personal friends, like a 500 to 2,000 kind of
Well, I
personal
think it's
network?
so funny because we're aging ourselves again here, Shriya, because I'm like, yeah, my personal following is 500 people. Um, they were mostly personal followings, but like a lot of these kids, their personal following is like 2, 3,000 people. Like, I don't know
Hmm.
what,
Hmm.
they're not influencers per se. But especially the sorority circuit, girls that were on our internship program, like they had like 5,000 followers and some of them did have like eventually their accounts were growing. So like their TikTok accounts were more growing, but like 10,000. Um, and yeah, I wouldn't say they thought of themselves as influencers, but their numbers are so much higher than ours.
Yeah.
It's just the truth. Um, Another nugget about these guys is that I found out through just the program and chatting with them was that they don't like to advertise that they're doing like ambassador type of stuff much on their personal account. So
Hmm.
you really have to have them like fully bought in to be like, oh, post this to your reel or your feed or your story. There was a lot of pushback. And even when you go and find young women or men who are doing other programs here, like with big followings, they're less likely to like be like, oh, I'll take $100 to do a post than a millennial influencer is.
Yeah, they don't want to do like sponsored content and feel like
Nope.
they're a walking ad.
Nope.
But so
Not at
then
all.
how do you still bring it back to Capsule?
So initially we just didn't asked, like, it was like they didn't want to do it, and we didn't have them. We had them posting on our own feed. We had them doing the boots on the ground stuff. We had them going to events.
Mm,
The sorority girls would have, oh my gosh, Rush Week, and they would
mm-hmm.
have flyers out. They would go to the Starbucks, like they would do other things. Eventually, as they became more bought into the company, like all of a sudden they literally all had like capsule in their bios and they wanted to
Mm,
post. But we didn't push back on that initially because we didn't, it wasn't fully what it was about. Like I didn't feel like I created it to be this influencer marketing channel,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
per se. So we just said, great, we'll do other things. And over time, with trust and real passion for what they were doing, then it was different. They would do it. But I don't think
Mm-hmm.
any of them would have been like $50, please post this to your story. They'd have been like, no.
Yeah, yeah. I still remember the like one of the only companies that I remember must have done some kind of on-campus promotion was Coffee Meets Bagel 10, 15 years ago in Boston at
Yeah.
Tufts. They put flyers in every single bathroom stall on the inside, so like you're sitting there looking at it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it really worked. People were talking about it on campus, so we were all like, okay, I guess we'll download this because it's in our face and we want to
Yeah,
find
we
someone to
literally
date.
can't not see it. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Um, okay, so what was a time that someone like stood out, like any memorable thing where someone impressed you?
Yeah. It was such a stellar group of humans. Like, it almost makes me emotional. It's like the one of the most rewarding pieces of building the company was this internship program. But one in particular that stands out is it was towards sort of the end of the company before acquisition. Um, we were still debating going into another round and kind of in the raise trenches. And we had come up with this idea to basically create a marketing campaign around a particular feature. So we had created a feature that allowed users to upload an image and we would generate their color season. And then we made it really easy to shop for any item in like the exact hues that are most flattering on you. Not just like, oh, purple looks good, but like, what is the
Hmm.
exact shade of purple that makes you absolutely glow? And so we were creating a bunch of different accounts for color season, and we had created um, a desktop experience, native experience that allowed you to get your color season and shop that wasn't gated by the app. And we were really trying to get this done and push it. We were kind of on a time crunch. And one of our newer interns, she had just joined. I'd only met her casually like one time. Was like, I want to help. I'm so passionate. I love this feature. It was a Friday night. I was cranking to try and get it done to do a release. We had 8 color seasons, 5 outfits per season, and 5 pieces to an outfit. And she like essentially pulled an all-nighter with me. I kept telling her, go out, go party. Like my kids are sleeping. This is,
Yeah.
I'm cranking. It's fine. This is what I signed up for.
You're like,
Go.
I wouldn't be at a party, but you are in
Yes,
college. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Please,
yeah.
please. And she was like, no, I love this. I'm so passionate. I'm so excited to be here. She worked her butt off. I paid her fully for everything she did, but she never asked. She never said, I'll do it, please. Nothing. Just was in it with me. And one of our other employees, like our head of marketing and strategy, was also up trying to like pull all of this off. It was a ton of work. And I'll never forget it. I'm still connected with her. I think it almost is hard to highlight her versus everyone else because everyone had moments where they really shined. But I think just the work ethic and the trust and enthusiasm when she had just joined and was so on a high about sort of the passion that she saw from her peers and the company was really impactful and special for me.
This sounds like someone you should hire when she's looking for full time
Oh,
when she graduates.
absolutely. I would
Yeah, yeah.
genuinely hire. Well, I'm like, is there one I wouldn't hire? Like, I mean, it was such a stellar group of young people. I would give any one of them a glowing review.
That's so cool. That's awesome. So okay, so what were the outcomes? Like where did this bring you? How did this contribute to growth and the data side, like improving the algorithms?
That was huge. So we, on the growth side, when we started the program, I think we were roughly about 3,000 users. When we were acquired, we had scaled to 15,000, a little bit over, I think. And a large part of that growth was due in part to our interns. Depending on the school, the size, and how many interns we had at a school, a couple of schools we did have two interns. We were roughly assuming that towards the end, that any one intern would bring us 300 to 500 new users. Like
So
massive,
cool.
massive return on investment. On the data side, when it was done, they had generated over 1 million tags. Those tags improved tons of things across our app. So it's hard to pinpoint just one. But for an example, it improved the relevancy scores when it was a traditional text search. It massively improved our ranking scores for image similarity for a computer vision search from an image or screenshot. It also helped with our personalization dramatically. So across the board, we saw massive improvements from the million tags that these guys generated over time.
That's it's crazy. Like 1 million is crazy. That's amazing. I
Yeah.
love that you like made it into a game so that it could build up to that kind of number.
Yeah. And there was different games happening, like I mentioned before. So in the way those tags work, right? Like some can kind of like regenerate and give you additional tags and value as they're combining. So it was just huge. Yes, it's hard to believe that it scaled the way that it did, but it was wonderful.
Yeah. And then okay, so this was already a huge success, but if you ran it again, what would you do differently? What based on everything you learned from it?
I One thing I would do um sooner is towards the middle end of the program. I mentioned that we started elevating some interns within the community to help us in leadership positions, but we also started helping people identify what they really loved. So we had the guerrilla marketing type efforts, we had social media, we had the data side. And I think that breadth is really wonderful for everyone to have. And it gave them such a strong grasp of what holistically Capsule was doing, but helping them identify the thing that they really love and doubling down on that is incredibly valuable. And so I mentioned we also had brought in some more technical interns that were doing everything. They were more focused on engineering with Kelsey or doing some data things with Justin or whatever it might be. And so I think one thing I would do sooner is be really clear with a structure of like, hey, everyone's going to spend a semester as you join kind of doing all the things, really get the lay of the land. But let's figure out what you're most excited about and then do a semester or two, or who knows, indefinitely, like a little bit more hyper drilled in on the thing that makes you tick.
Hmm.
So hopefully you are getting additional skill sets and experience that will help you wherever you may end up later. They're young, so that may change, which is great. We can be adaptable to that. But I think helping them explore at a deeper level and intentionally within the program would be great.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you're effectively going to have actual part-time team members.
Yeah,
Like you'd have little teams. Yeah.
you have little teams. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and then okay, so I mean, I'd love to just like use our little wrap-up question about taste. So when did your personal taste go against like prevailing wisdom or things you'd heard a lot of people recommend in the past? And did you follow your gut or did you go along with the prevailing wisdom?
For sure. So I think when I started tossing the idea around about an internship program and leaning into interns as initially a growth mechanism, transparently, I think conventional wisdom from most people I talk to was like, it's overplayed. It's done a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You hear the massive success stories, but it's honestly been a while since there's been a breakout like that. Bumble, maybe, like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there's some, but conventional wisdom
Tinder,
was,
Bumble, like
yeah,
yeah, I always think of Red Bull because I feel like Red
Red
Bull has a
Bull.
very scaled like
Hmm.
college program. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that it felt kind of overplayed and like it's going to take a lot of your time and you're not going to get the return on investment, like really think about other channels for growth in these early days was kind of the general advice. And I don't believe that that is bad advice per se, but I think knowing myself and my co-founder Kelsey, who you know Kelsey as well, and the people that we are and the intentionality that we had with the program, um, it was misguided for us in particular, or that conventional wisdom like didn't suit us. And the reason for that is, I think, as I mentioned earlier, the only reason it worked like it did was because of the real like true community that we built through the program. We genuinely cared about these kids. I was texting them. I was meeting with them regularly. I knew their parents' names. Like we really, really leaned in. And obviously, you can't do that at scale with 2,000 interns, which is what we wanted to do. But you
Mm.
can do that at scale with eventually the interns who are leading within the, and as long as they're doing the same thing with the kids who are reporting into them, and you do set a time aside to meet with people and kind of create these magical moments, I really think you can scale in a really incredible capacity. So it absolutely went against sort of the early advice and conventional wisdom. And I think, as I mentioned, if you were to do something like that, it's worth considering that that advice is not wrong if you're going to not put the heart and the kind of consideration and time into it that you need to make it work.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, it's the typical like you get out what you put in. I've also
Mm-hmm.
seen sometimes like really young founders who are only a few years out of college themselves, they'll try and get interns instead of like contractors. But they're not experienced in that. They're not specialized
No.
yet. Versus this was your exact target customer. This
Yes.
was actually people who had the mindset, the perspective, and the opinion of your target customer. Like they were going to truly drive, like you said, both user research and growth. And
Yeah.
you had the opportunity to teach them about data and AI while then you got actual help on the ground, but they didn't need to be specialists in something. They didn't need to be
No.
a freelance expert who had done it for 10 years.
No, it's so funny to even, I think that it's such a good point, and the parallel is really interesting because it's so not a parallel. Like, I never,
Yeah, so
my,
different.
yeah, like I never would have ever thought about the work they were doing as like something I would use a contractor for, which is so telling in and of itself. Wildly, like they essentially became like a mechanical Turk arm for our data
Yeah.
and our tech, but um, that you can't go into it like that, and you have to be really thoughtful, as you mentioned, about who they are, why they're there, and what value they provide, and um, definitely not a contractor replacement in any capacity. I totally agree. I wouldn't go down that path either.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this was so amazing. I learned so much. I really appreciate your time. I love that you gave us all this big playbook for the intern program because I know it's been something that so many people have asked you about. And so, yeah, I'm so glad. I hope that people use all of these learnings to build something of their own for their own product if it's the right fit for them.
Too. I love it. I'm so happy to talk with you and share it. I hope it's helpful to folks and not just founders, but that it creates more opportunities for young people in different schools all across the US. I think it really is actually critically important to create these opportunities and experiences for kids in school. So
Yeah,
I
I
think
would
it's
have loved to sign up for this, and I'm sure you would have too. So,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks again for joining.
Bye.
Bye. I learned so much from this episode with Michelle, and I hope you did too. Some of the top three things that I'm going to take away from this is I thought it was really amazing to hear about an intern program that was super valuable because often they might seem like a waste of time or companies will tack them on in a way that's not really serving their business. But for Capsule, the target user was Gen Z. They knew that college women have great word of mouth on their campuses. And so they recruited this target customer and it actually drove tons of users, 300 to 500 per person. The second thing I thought was really cool is that when they were asking people to do something that might be relatively tedious or that they otherwise would need to use kind of tedious labor for, like a mechanical Turk, tagging and categorizing a bunch of data, they turned it into a game. I thought that was super smart. And I think it's really cool to be able to put together something scrappy to solve one of your needs and like utilize human psychology to make it easier to get that stuff done. And finally, I think it's really awesome that they opened up the inside of the way that the company works to the interns. Don't underestimate how much young people are curious to learn and really eager to see the behind the scenes of business and startups. Think back to yourself. Most of us did not have any exposure to this from like 18 to 20, maybe those who grew up surrounded by it, but there's still many, many smart, ambitious, creative people who haven't been exposed. So they weren't afraid to share things like product development or fundraising. And I think that was so valuable for all the interns. So thanks again to Michele for joining us. Taste and Tactics is available on every major podcast platform and at Taste and Tactics on LinkedIn, X, TikTok, and Instagram. Thank you to our producer, Simran Honda. See you next week.